Hello, my beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my new microphone that my brother, who is my bestest friend, bought for me. This is going to be my June wrap up. There are like 25 books to talk about, so we're just going to get through this quickly. I always say I'm going to make this video as quick and succinct as possible. Never happens, but today might be that day. First, let's get into the 3 books that I fully just DNF'd this month, which is a lot for me. I've only DNF'd 9 books this entire year, and 3 of them happen to be in June because I just wasn't playing around. I wasn't dealing with any like back and forth bullshit. So the first one is Intercepts by TJ Payne. A lot of people have said that this is one of their favorite horror books, that it's disturbing and dark and whatever. I read 50 pages, I was bored. I didn't like the main character. Straight away, he was just so boring, just such an everyday guy that I didn't care. And the idea that depriving people of all their senses can somehow make them intercept other people's senses, it does not make any sense. I don't understand how that idea came to, it doesn't make any sense. So I DNF'd it. I also DNF'd Slappy's Diner by Justin Bragg. Now this is a story that was initially published, I think, on r/no sleep. I think I went through a phase of trying to find published no sleep books, and this was one of them. Unfortunately, this was just so poorly written. This writing just did not work for me. It felt very amateur, which it is, but I didn't want to read it, so I didn't have to. And lastly, we have got A Twisted Love Story by Samantha Downing. This is the last book I own by Samantha Downing that I had yet to read. I think I gave this 100 pages, and the 2 main characters were insufferable. This is a twisted love story. It is about this couple that is so toxic whenever they're together, but whenever they break up, they just want to get straight back together. They do shitty things to each other, and at some point, a dead body turns up and it's somehow related to their relationship. I don't know, and I never will because I didn't finish it. Next, let's go through the books that I completed this month in, I guess, just chronological order, and I am unhauling quite a fair amount of these, so I will explain that to you as we go through as well. So first we have got The Beauty of Darkness by Mary E. Pearson. The fact that this was a June read, like, I feel like I read this book months ago. This is the final book in the Remnant Chronicles trilogy, and this book was very infuriating. Again, it's so hard to talk about this book because it's the last in a series. All I will say it was a satisfying conclusion. I did not love what the ending had in store for one of our characters because it just felt so like basic and provincial for all the stuff he'd done in the rest of the series, but I did like it. Another one I read that I really enjoyed is Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. I loved The Butcher, wanted to read this ASAP, and this was the month for it. This book follows our main character, Gio. Gio's first love that she was with while she was in high school has 5 years after the fact been caught as a serial killer, and she is put on trial as a testimony for some of his crimes. Longest of story short, she's at her dad's house. She's living back at home with her dad, and murders start occurring that are very reminiscent of her ex-boyfriends, and she is thinking, he's coming back for me. I really loved this book, okay? I loved so much about this book. It sounds terrible, but I could understand even the shitty characters and the horrible things they did. I could kind of understand their feelings and their reasons for things, and it was just such a good book. I would highly recommend. If you like serial killer books, this is such a fucking good book, like hands down. The next book we have is one that I do not have to hold up because I've actually already sold it to someone else. It was The Younger Wife by Sally Hepworth. Obviously, because it's not here, I didn't love it, but I didn't dislike it either. This book follows 2 sisters as their dad announces that he is going to marry a new woman that he's met. She is the daughter's age, and the mother is actually in a care facility for dementia. So they are very, I guess, obviously triggered by the fact that their dad is moving on with this new younger woman while their mum is still alive. Anyway, I didn't dislike this book. I actually thought it was very well written and I liked the characters. I just hated the last chapter. Like, I was pretty much vibing the entire time, but the book is one of those books that kind of makes you question if the bad guy is actually the bad guy or if the good guy has just been like incorrect the whole time. And for this particular book, it didn't work for me. It just left too many things up in the air. It didn't explain anything at the end, and sometimes that works for me, sometimes it doesn't. This is one of those times, unfortunately, where it just did not work for me. Then I picked up Escape by Stephen Fishbach. I have been so excited to read this book since it came out. This is actually a book that my brother bought for me for my birthday this year, and he's been nagging me to read it, so I picked it up. I wish I liked this more. I am keeping this book because my brother wrote a very cute little message on the inside cover for me, so I am keeping it. But this book, as interesting as it wasn't entertaining. So this book is all about reality TV, how reality TV producers absolutely manipulate and manufacture storylines, which we all know that reality TV isn't reality, right? But what we don't necessarily think about is that to the participants, it's real. Like, these things are happening to them. These things are being said to them and by them. But from the producing side, the producers are so careful with what they ask of the contestants. They're so manipulative with the language they use and the snippets that they manage to coax out of the participants that from the participants' point of view, it's real, but from the producer's point of view, it's obviously not. It was very interesting to have a look at, I guess, the production of a reality show and how much dodgy stuff goes into it. But like I said, it wasn't an entertaining book. Like, I was quite bored at some points. This is basically about a group of people being put on an island, and their goal is to try and escape the island and win money before the rest of their contestants. But again, this isn't just about the show, it is about the production. And one of the producers that we follow has kind of let herself be brainwashed into producing the best reality show possible, even if it goes against her ethics, her morals, her wants and needs. So it was interesting, not necessarily entertaining. The next book I picked up is Maggie's Grave by David Sodergren. Now, I was so excited for this book. I absolutely loved The Heart. It was such an unexpected gem. This one I had such high hopes for, and unfortunately it did not hit those hopes. I will be unhauling this, I think. But this follows a group of teenagers living in this really small town where there's no children. Everyone just seems to be getting older, and these 4 teenagers are basically the last of the youth in this town. Everyone else has left. And we're following this group of teenagers on a night that a cursed witch rises from her grave and causes absolute mayhem. There was a fun little twist at the very end of this book that I actually didn't see coming. I wasn't expecting it. So that was a nice way for the book to end. But this kind of just felt like gore for gore's sake. And there were some really bizarre scenes where I just didn't understand. Like, there's an orgy scene. I don't know why that happened. That was never really explained. It didn't make sense to me. And yeah, it didn't pack the emotional punch that The Heart did. So unfortunately, I will be unhauling this, but I'm sure someone out there will love it. I've heard a lot of praise for this book. I just wasn't the right person for it, I guess. And the next book is another one that I do not have with me because I have already sold it. It is Middle Game by Sean McGuire. This has been on my TBR since this book was announced. So it's been sitting on my bookshelves for quite some time. And this is one that I think my expectations were just too high, so it was never going to live up to them. In this book, we are following Roger and Dodger. They are a set of basically grown twins. They are created by this alchemist who wants to achieve immortality, endless power, the ability to manipulate reality and time. And he's got many groups of twins on the go, but Roger and Dodger are the twins that we focus on. And it starts with them being separated at birth, living in 2 different households, but being able to communicate telepathically. And we just follow their like childhood through this telepathy as they talk to each other through to their teenagehood and then into their adulthood. It was quite a harrowing story. There were a lot of really sad moments, and it wasn't the book for me, unfortunately. So that one has been sold. Hopefully it is with a new loving home right now. Then I picked up The Player's Promise by Teenie Page from her Melbourne book signing event. So I had read the audio before going to the event, but obviously I went to the event. I got a copy of the book with my ticket and I got it signed, and I will insert a picture of me and Miss Teenie Page right here. She was absolutely lovely, and this book was her best by far. I have loved all of her books, but there's something about The Player's Promise that I really, really enjoy. So we are following Anna and Liam. They meet at a bar. They have one great night together. Liam leaves the next day, and Anna thinks she liked him, but she'll probably never see him again, until Anna has to call one of her students' parents to come down to the school and have a bit of a chat. And who shows up but Liam? Liam is her student's parent. She has slept with one of her students' parents. This book was so good. These 2 characters just went through so much fucking shit, and I loved how much they were there for each other. I'm really appreciating, more so now than ever, books that are having a really strong foundation of friendship before they commit to more, just being there for each other as people. Like, it gives me warm fuzzies. So I absolutely love this. I will hold on to this book forever. Next I picked up A Good Person by Kirsten King. This was a funky little book. This was a very fun book. We are following our main character, Lillian. Lillian has been seeing Henry on the down low for a while, and she's ready for them to be an actual couple. The night she thinks that he's going to ask her to be more official, he just breaks up with her. He's like, yeah, you obviously are like a bit more into this than I am, so like I'm good. And the next morning, Henry is mysteriously reported as deceased. He has been murdered, and the attention focuses on Lillian straight away because the cops find out that they had a relationship that ended under not the best terms. But Lillian is like a prime suspect in his murder, and this book was just a wild journey because Lillian is such a horrible fucking person. She's clearly mentally ill, clearly a narcissist, I would say a sociopath, but I still liked her and I was still rooting for her, and I loved the level of insanity that she brought to this book. So while she isn't the kind of character I would typically root for, like, you will still love her. I found her fucking hilarious, in all honesty. Like, in real life, she would terrify me. In a book, I thought she was so funny. I love this book. I will be keeping it, obviously. Next, we have Reprieve by James Han Matson. This book was a disappointment. I've had this book for a while. I got this for Christmas from my godmother in 2021. This follows a group of people who went into like not so much an escape room, like a mix of an escape room and an extreme haunted house. And at the end of the night, one of the participants ends up dead. One of the like producers, or one of the people that works at this haunted house, ends up jailed. And this is just a character study of the characters that happen to be in the haunted house that night. But it's such a forgettable book. I read this in June. I could not tell you one really solid thing about it that I remember and enjoyed. It just follows a bunch of characters just kind of living their lives, and they all kind of cross paths at this haunted house, and something bad happens. And I really wish we had seen more of like the trial and the court case of the person who was convicted of this murder. We don't. It just felt like so many missed opportunities. So this one will be getting unhauled as well. The next book I read is Missing Parts by Lucinda Berry. I listened to this as an audio through my library, I think, and it was not good. I'm really glad that I didn't physically own this book because it would have disappointed me to have paid money for this book. We follow our main character who doesn't seem to like really enjoy being a mother, but her husband is thriving. He loves being a dad, and their daughter obviously prefers the husband quite a bit. Things start to go wrong in their life when their daughter ends up in hospital with a mysterious disease, and they're not entirely sure what it is or how they can cure it. And without getting too far into it, we follow our main character as she abandons her daughter and husband. And it was all so incredibly fucking selfish. Everything that this main character did was so incredibly selfish. Even things where you could understand she made that decision because she was traumatized or she was scared were still so selfish. This main character was just absolutely horrendous. I can't imagine anyone reading the book and being like, oh, it was so sad when that stuff happened to her. It was so unfortunate that that's how the book ended. I fucking despised her. She actually really fucking annoyed me. It was just a bad book. Okay, next I read The Night We Met by Abby Jimenez. This book has a trope that I absolutely hate in it, but it was done so delicately and beautifully that I love it. So we are following Larissa, Chris, and Mike. Larissa, Chris, and Mike all met one night at a concert, and Larissa asked, hey, can anyone drive me home? And both Mike and Chris said, yeah, one of us can drive you home. She chose to go with Mike that day, so she is now dating Mike. However, when Mike starts not behaving like the best boyfriend and asks Chris to step in for him, Larissa and Chris actually go really, really, really close. And they have this beautiful friendship that is very emotional cheating. It is very much emotional cheating. Like, let's be very clear. But they have this really beautiful friendship. And at the same time, like, Mike did such stupid, selfish things, but I understood him as a character. I really, really understood everything that he was going through and why he acted the way that he did. And I also understand why Larissa was in the position that she was in. And I also understood why Chris kept things secret from Larissa because he loves Mike so much. And I will say the one scene that I actually started tearing up at in this book was at the very end, and it is a conversation between Chris and Mike, and I got very, very like teary. It was just such a beautiful moment. So I hate cheating in books, but I do think that this book handled it in a way that you equally want all the characters to be happy in their prospective couple, but you also understand why that doesn't make sense. It was just such a well-written book. I absolutely fucking love this book. A lot of people do not seem to be driving with Abby Jimenez's latest releases, and I don't I don't understand. Next, I picked up For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. This book was weird. I just think maybe The Lovely Wife was an outlier, and everything I've read by Samantha Downing since then has not worked for me. This follows predominantly a teacher. He works at a high school, and he has just decided to start drugging his co-workers. That's basically what this book starts as. We're following this like sick little man who grows dangerous plants in his backyard and uses the coffee pods that his co-workers drink to give them drugs. So like if one guy always sneezes, he'll inject an antihistamine in this guy's coffee pod. Or if someone looks like they're starting to get sick, he'll inject like Codral into their coffee pod. And obviously he starts dosing out more and more dangerous things, and he thinks it's all for their own good. What I didn't like about this book was basically all of it. I was intrigued enough to keep reading because I thought the book would end in a really strong way. However, it just ended with the cycle repeating itself, and I did not appreciate that. I did not like it. I really wish I DNF'd it. But anyway, here we are. I finished it. So there we go. Moving on. Another book that I had such high hopes for that disappointed me and will be getting unhauled. It is called A Fig for All the Devils. This book, I'm so conflicted about. Part of me really appreciates that this book has a lot of the author's real childhood traumas in it, that this author basically bared open his soul to say, at the very start of this book, before you even start reading, he says, yes, a lot of these things did happen to me. A lot of the trauma, a lot of the experiences were very, very true for me. The only thing that isn't true for me is obviously that the Grim Reaper did not approach me and ask me to be his apprentice. That is what happens in this book. We're following our main character who has had a very traumatic childhood up until this point, and his dad has just passed. He's now living with his mum, who doesn't really seem to like him as a person. His mum started dating this new guy, and our main character is very much on the brink of making a very bad decision when the Grim Reaper shows up and is like, hey, I actually need an apprentice because I'm about to hit, I think like his 1000th year. And I need someone to take over for me, so I'm going to train you. And that is basically the story. That is really... There's a couple of other side plots that absolutely make no difference to the plot, so that is the main thing. And while this was written so beautifully, I got frustrated by the end. The way that this book ended genuinely made me so angry. Like, one of the characters has a come to Jesus moment, and I was like, but why couldn't you have figured that out earlier? Like, it took you to the end of the book to figure that out. Do you know how much shit you have caused trying to... It annoyed me. It's getting on hold. I might regret it later, but it just really, really irked me. But then I read a book that was a cute little surprise. It is called Petty Lies by Solmi Bach. I picked this up at QBD on a whim. I saw it. It was cute. It was little. Love the cover. And it basically says that it is 4 versions of the same story with no happy ending. So this is just a cute little thriller about a tutor who comes to tutor one of the sons in this household. And she has ulterior motives. I'm not going to say anything else. It is a very short book, but we do follow the tutor's perspective, the mother's perspective, the pupil's perspective, and his brother's perspective about a murder that occurs. One of the sons is murdered, and it was very, very juicy. It was like Parasite, like a little nibble of something that was very Parasite-esque, which is one of my favorite movies. I always say one of my favorite horror movies, but I don't know if it's a horror. It's just a blend of genres that just makes me so happy. So this was very reminiscent of Parasite. If that is all you need to know going into it, then hold on to that. Next, I picked up a book that has taken me years to pick up, FYI. This was probably published, like, I would say 10 years ago. Surely it's got to be at least 10. Maybe 8. Published 2018. It was published 8 years ago. It is Daisy Jones and the Six. Now, first of all, can we just look at the end pages, guys? Look at the end pages. I love this edition. I'm not going to explain Daisy Jones and the Six to you guys because everyone knows it is about a band who breaks up and everyone wants to know, why did they break up? It is literally fan fiction of Fleetwood Mac. I really did not understand the relationship between Billy and Daisy because it's pitched as like this toxic but also codependent, like, love of the ages. Like, crazy love for each other that neither of them can control, but neither of them really thinks they should have. I didn't see it. Because this whole book is told in interviews, I think it was actually to the detriment of believing that Billy and Daisy were ever interested in each other. Oh, spoiler, FYI, Daisy and Billy end up being into each other, which you could have picked up from the first page, if I'm being honest. But because you're reading this entire book through an interview, Daisy will be like, I told Billy that his hair looked good, and Billy will be like, she told me that my hair looked like shit. Okay, I get that it's trying to show that everyone has a different memory, everyone has a different version of their truth. I get all that. But when you're reading that about characters that are supposed to be in love with each other, but you never actually see them interact on the page, it is so difficult to believe. Like, I did not buy their relationship at all. The ending of this book didn't frustrate me, but it just felt too neat. It just felt like too perfect and like too hopeful for the future, when basically this entire book is just a bunch of people doing a lot of drugs and then feeling bad about it. That is actually this book. Like, I get that drugs were rampant in the 60s and 70s, but this entire book was just non-sober people doing shitty things to each other, and I don't know why so many people fucking enjoyed this book. I feel like everyone else must have read a different fucking copy than I did. Next, I picked up one I have wanted to read so fucking long, and I'm so excited that I read it. It is Mary by Nat Cassidy. This is my first Nat Cassidy book, and while I will say I don't necessarily think the term like a Nat Cassidy girly is applicable to me just yet. I think in some time it may be. This book follows Mary, our main character, and she is feeling strange. Like, things are happening, her body is changing, and every time she looks in the mirror, she just sees her reflection start to like warp and melt. She can't look at young women because their faces get all like weird and gross. She started having weird dreams, and Mary's just not feeling normal, so she goes to the doctor, and the doctor's like, babe, have you heard of menopause? You're actually just going through menopause. And Mary's like, I don't think menopause gives you hallucinations, but let's pretend that it does. And then Mary gets a call from her aunt who raised her and says, Mary, you need to come home. I need someone to take care of me. Mary goes back home, and it basically sets off like a whole ass chain of events, because the town that she was raised in, fucking weird religious cult vibes. I love this book. I wouldn't call it a new favorite. I really thought it was going to be. It wasn't a new favorite, but it definitely was like obsessed. I love culty vibes. I love when a whole town is just eerie and there's just something weird about all the people except for a few, and then you're like, who's crazy and who's sane? And this was that book, and I really enjoyed it, so I would highly recommend. The next book I read might be my favorite book of the year so far, and I'm so mad that it took me 10 fucking years to get to this book. It is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Who out there needs an explanation of this book? Oh, you do at the back? Okay. This book follows a woman named Addie LaRue, and she was born in 1800s France, and she hates her life. So one day she makes a deal with the devil, and that is freedom, that she wants endless time to live the life that she's always wanted to live. And the devil says, sure thing, baby cakes. But there's a little caveat, and that is that no one will ever remember Addie. Like, she can be immortal, she can live forever, she can do whatever she wants, but no one's ever going to remember who she is, her face, her name. No one will ever remember her. But then we follow Addie in modern day New York, and she meets someone who remembers her. Such a good fucking book. I actually read this copy, the OG paperback, right? But then as soon as I'd finished reading it, I went out and picked up the illustrated anniversary edition because it's just so much cuter. So I loved it. I gave it 6 stars. I gave it 5 stars, but if I had a 6-star system, this would be a 6-star read. I fucking love this book. I'm so mad that no one yelled at me sooner and told me to read it. It was just... And I've heard that the people that hate it just don't think it was interesting, but like, I love books that deal with the devil. That's why I had such high hopes for A Fig for All the Devils. I love a Grim Reaper devil figure that just like tricks people and fucks around with them. And that's exactly what Addie LaRue gave me. It was such a good book. Then I picked up Dead 11 by Jimmy Giuliano. I had high hopes. I had a lot of high hopes this month. I'm actually realizing I've probably said that about 20 times in this video. This book follows a weird little island. And on this island, everyone just lives every single day like it's the 1990s. Like, they will watch recorded VHSs of O.J. Simpson in the police chase. They watch that on the news every night. They still wear clothes from the 1990s. And we start with this guy whose sister has gone missing. He has not heard from his sister in a while, and the last place she was known to have been is on this island. So he goes to this island to find out what has happened to his sister. There were some elements of this I really enjoyed. There were other elements that I did not care about. For example, the whole thing behind living like it's still the 90s was so stupid. I can't believe that that was a thing. that was done on purpose and for a reason and that it worked. It was just dumb to me. It felt like, for how exciting that could have been, it was not executed in a way that excited me. So this is getting unhauled. The next book is also getting unhauled. It is The Lake by Natasha Preston. I basically read this going into it knowing it probably wasn't going to be a book that I was going to keep. It was like a fun time, but it was like a good time. It wasn't a well-written book time. So this follows two girls, Esme and Kayla. Esme and Kayla used to go to a summer camp when they were young, but something bad happened one year and they stopped going to camp. But this year they are back as camp counselors and they feel like their past is coming back to hurt them. Why? Why? I actually enjoyed, was it called The Cellar? Was that the other book by Natasha Preston that I read? I actually liked The Cellar. I thought it was like dark and in like a really, really like teenage, scary, big scary way. I really liked The Cellar. This just felt a little bit like, we're going to write a thriller, but we're going to leave out anything that might be remotely thrilling. I think I gave this a 2.5 star. It was just such a completely average read. I really struggle with YA thrillers because they so frequently fall so short. And this was one of those books. And like the last page, I finished the last page and I looked at the book like, but where's the next page? It just ended so abruptly. And like, I don't know. If you are cool for like a fun, fast-paced YA thriller, go for it. But get it from your library. I wouldn't have paid money for this if I had known that it was going to be just very camp. And I don't mean that in a punny way. It was just a very camp book. The next book I read was actually an ARC that I got from NetGalley. Look at me fucking killing it. Look at me like killing my booktuber goals. This is a book that was recently put on NetGalley by an author that I read from earlier this year and I really, really enjoyed. So this is The Burn by Jessica Mansour-Nara, I think you say. I loved The Farm, her first book. Loved her debut. 5 stars, just the right amount of creepy and gothic and like fuck men, good for her vibes. The Burn was not really what I was expecting. So in The Burn, we are set in Australia 2030. The climate is fucked. We did not take care of the environment and the environment is angry. So we are following our main character as she is coming out of an airlock in Sydney. So like we had lockdowns during COVID. In this time when the bushfires and like the country is on fire, they make people stay indoors for like air security to make sure that they're not breathing in smoky air. So we are following our main character the week that she gets out of airlock and she and her friends decide to go on a cute little trip, cute little camping trip by the beach. And I enjoyed seeing the friendship dynamics because as soon as you see these friends interact, you know that something is going to pop off. Like there just seems to be a lot of tension and a lot of things that are left unsaid. I knew that something was going to happen within the friendship group. That was interesting to me. But we're also following like this character's history with men. We're following her past relationship with her sister and her father and her mother and her trip around Europe and her mum's wedding and how she really likes her job but she hates what her job is now promoting. And it just felt like there was maybe too many things happening. So I did give this book a 4-star. I would recommend it, especially as someone who lives in Australia. We fuck the planet and the planet is angry. So for that element alone, this book was terrifying. For the fact that her friendship group was so fucked and I could feel the tension, that made me anxious. I loved that. I really didn't care for all the additional context to our main character's life. I don't think it was entirely necessary. And I think the book ended on a bit of a weird note. So there were a couple of things that I didn't love, but overall I do think it was a pretty interesting book. So I'm glad that I read it, and I am also so glad that Jessica is coming to Melbourne for a little book event in, well, if I could remember the month, I think it might be in August. It is like an hour away from my house, so it's going to be a bit of a drive, but I'm so excited to meet her. The next book I read is Rest and Be Thankful by Emma Glass. This was just a fucked up little fever dream of a book. We are following a pediatric nurse. She spends her entire day taking care of sick babies and making sure they survive the night. Meanwhile, her personal life is suffering because she's not getting enough sleep. And when she does sleep, she often has nightmares. And this book was, overall, it was just so sad. Like, I know that we all know that working in a hospital has to be really tough, but this book, I was just like, I can't imagine getting up and going to work, A, when I'm already that tired, but B, going to work knowing what my day of work entails. Like I could not work in the medical field. So I just appreciated this character, and the amount of love she poured so much of her love into taking care of these kids and these babies that she didn't really have enough left in the tank for herself. It was just a quick, sad, trippy sort of book, and I liked it, so I will be holding on to it. Next, I picked up Let's Go Play with Atoms by Mendel W. Johnson. This is the first book I read from the Paperbacks from Hell series that Grady Hendrix came out with. Rather, he wrote a book called Paperbacks from Hell and then worked with publishers to get some of the books he wrote about republished, and he does write introductions for these books. So in this book, we are following a 21-year-old woman named Barbara. I guess she's more of a girl, who is babysitting for, I think, 3 weeks, babysitting 2 kids for 3 weeks while the parents go away to Europe. However, these kids end up essentially capturing her. They hold her captive, and then they invite a couple of their friends over. And initially it's kind of a, yes, like we won, we beat the adults, we took one of the adults captive, like good for us. But they realize that they usually play like imaginary games of like cops and robbers, or, you know, tying one of them up and the rest of them, you know, pretend attack. But they realize that they have an opportunity to turn their imagination into a reality. This book was very, very dark, depressing, grim, went places I didn't think it would. But it wasn't like an extreme horror. I don't necessarily think it was gratuitous. I think the things that were explained were there to upset the reader, but not to like gross the reader out, if that makes sense. This book, yeah, it has a lot of triggers. I did not love, I understood the ending. I understand why it was written that way. Like, I get it. As the person reading the book, I was like, ugh. Yeah, this is just a fucked up little book about torture. I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but I am keeping this book because I think it was very, very interesting. And yeah, it kind of gave me a mix of like, maybe the Sylvia Likens case with a dash of Lord of the Flies thrown in. Like, the things that are happening behind closed doors with people that you thought you could trust, as well as children being left to their own devices, losing their innocence by their own volition. Very interesting book. I will be keeping it. Next, I picked up Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. I've had this book for a while. I found the audiobook, I think, through my library as well, and decided, why not? It's time. This book follows a family following the death of the eldest daughter, Lydia. She's the favorite. She's the oldest daughter. She has got an older brother and a younger sister, but she's like the favorite child. We're following the parents meeting, them having Lydia as a baby, and the brother and the sister, and like basically following the entire family's history up until the point of Lydia's death, as well as the ripple effect her death has on the family and how she ended up in the situation where she was found in this lake. And it was a very well written character study of this family going through grief, and how in their own way each character was kind of responsible for what did happen to Lydia. But I don't know, I'm never going to read it again. I'm unhauling this not because I didn't like this book, but just because I've read it. I can kind of tick it off my list, and I don't think I'm ever going to go back to it. But yeah, pretty harrowing, pretty interesting. I would recommend that if you enjoy like maybe books that are slightly historical but still hold like family values true, you might enjoy this. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I just didn't love it. And the last book I read of the month was a fucked up little book called Tradwife. Who is it written by, guys? That's a true question. There are so many books called Tradwife coming out right now. This book follows a journalist named Jenny, and she basically wrote an article that got a lot of traction but then pissed a lot of people off. And her sort of last chance at remaining a journalist is to go interview a tradwife named Mia Wright on her little tradwife farm. So Jenny goes and she decides to stay with the family and kind of live Mia's life for a couple of days to see what being a tradwife is really all about. However, things are a bit weird at this farm. Mia is like very erratic in her behavior, like goes from being really happy and really placid and like loving her life to saying, Jenny, I need you to help me. And then being like, oh, I never said that. Weird things are happening. The children go between absolute animals and being like so well trained. Jenny's just freaked the fuck out. She's like, I don't know what's happening in this house, but I don't want to be here anymore. And then things get culty within the town. And this was such a fun little horror. I would highly recommend. I haven't read the other Tradwife. I was planning on reading it in a couple of weeks when my audiobook comes through at the library. I don't know if this qualifies as cosmic horror. I might fact check myself while I'm editing and see if it is. But I love this. It was fun. It was creepy. It was dark. I will be keeping this. And with that, I think we have finished my June 2026 wrap up. I don't want to think about how long this video is. This happens to me every time. And we'll also hopefully, I'm not committing to this because I went a little bit crazy in June, but I do want to film a June book haul at some point, and I will also be filming a video with my bestie. So keep an eye out for that if you care. If you don't, thank you for sticking around this long. And I will see you guys soon.